Have you ever stopped to consider how the incredibly rapid rise of China's new energy vehicles could completely dismantle?
hmm
Well, maybe redefine the 100-year dominance held by European automotive giants,
Yeah.
like Mercedes-Benz and Volkswagen. I mean, for a century, right, the European legacy was built on combustion engines, brand prestige, tech advantage. That was the formula.
Was for a very long time.
But today, Chinese electric vehicles, they're not just competing, they seem to be flooding the global market
Yeah.
at an astonishing pace, often way cheaper.
It's more than just rivalry, isn't it? It feels like a genuine industrial shockwave.
Yeah, exactly. And it's causing panic, talk of massive job losses, even trade wars erupting across Europe.
hmm
So we're going to spend this deep dive unpacking the complex mix of factors behind this. We're talking strategic policy moves, decades in the making.
Radical battery tech breakthroughs, you have to include those.
Absolutely. And these huge price gaps, all leading to this, unprecedented disruption in the global auto world. Before we go deeper, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and support Geo9. Okay, so let's set the scene first. The global context here is really crucial.
It really is.
You've got this backdrop of climate change consensus, energy security concerns, and just the unavoidable decline of fossil fuel cars.
Right, which pushed new energy way up the strategic priority list.
We
Globally.
saw early signs, didn't we, over a decade ago, like the
Yeah.
2009 Obama Clean Energy Plan in the U.S.
And Germany's 2010 energy transition, the Energiewende, those were big signals.
And that global movement, it was like the starting gun. What is interesting is Europe kind of doubled down on the urgency.
They really did. Countries like Norway, the Netherlands, they announced these super strict, really near-term deadlines for phasing out petrol and diesel cars altogether.
Basically forcing the issue.
Exactly. Forcing the entire auto world towards zero emissions, ready or not. And China saw this.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't just see it as a compliance thing or some tech fad.
No. What then?
They saw it as maybe the single biggest historical opportunity, a chance to leapfrog, you know, 2 centuries of Western auto leadership in one jump.
But that idea, China leapfrogging the West, it was met with huge skepticism back then, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely intense skepticism. It's almost funny looking back.
It's incredible to remember how little capacity they actually had initially. Back in 2009, 2010, China was producing, less than 5,000 NEVs a year?
Tiny numbers, statistically insignificant on a global scale.
And the Western media reaction.
Brutal. And in hindsight, completely wrong. I remember the Financial Times ran a piece basically saying, even with 20 years and billions, China probably couldn't make a meaningful EV.
And the Wall Street Journal.
They piled on too, kind of mocking the idea that even if they built one, nobody would actually, buy it.
A fundamental misjudgment then.
Completely misjudged the power of a state-directed, long-term industrial strategy.
So, okay, how did they go from 5,000 cars a year to basically dominating the global market? It clearly wasn't just organic growth.
No, not at all. It was strategic engineering, top-down. Starting around 2012, China rolled out this systematic, very coordinated, long-term policy framework. That was the engine.
Not just simple subsidies.
Oh, much more than that. It evolved. They started with direct purchase subsidy, sure. Then came the 10 cities, 1,000 vehicles demonstration program, basically forcing EVs onto the streets quickly for visibility and testing.
Okay.
And then the really critical part, they brought in the dual credit system.
The dual credit system.
Right.
That's the key piece many people miss, isn't it?
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Because it created this self-reinforcing mandatory cycle, something European policy just didn't have.
How did it work? Like a stick and carrot?
Exactly like that. Automakers got penalized heavily negative credits, the stick for making inefficient combustion engine cars. At the same time, they got rewarded positive credits, the carrot, for making new energy vehicles.
So it forced their hand.
Completely. It forced everyone operating in China, domestic and foreign players, to prioritize NEV production. It made building large-scale NEV manufacturing capacity basically mandatory, almost overnight.
And that system drove both production and market adoption together.
Precisely. And the result?
Right.
Well, that changed everything for the rest of the world. Fast forward to 2024, China's annual production of NEVs blows past 13 million units.
Wait, 13 million?
13 million. That's roughly 70%, 70 of total global output.
That's not just market leadership. That's becoming the global factory floor for electric cars.
Undisputed, #1 globally for 10 straight years.
So once they cracked the domestic market with that scale, the next logical step was export.
Inevitable. Exporting that huge tech and cost advantage.
And Europe was the obvious target.
The perfect entry point. Since 2019, Europe had its Green Deal, the 2035 fuel ban plan, plus consumer subsidies, charging infrastructure investment.
Making it a high EV penetration zone almost instantly, ripe for disruption.
Absolutely. And the speed of that disruption, the penetration timeline, it's just breathtaking. Chinese brands like BYD, SAIC, NIO, they started testing the waters around 2020, just dipping a toe in.
And back then, their market share was tiny, right?
Minuscule. Chinese-made NEVs were maybe 0.4% of new European registrations in 2020.
But by 2024,
That number surged to 650,000 units sold annually.
650,000 in 4 years.
That kind of climb just shattered the decades of market protection that traditional European makers enjoyed on their home turf.
And wasn't there a moment with Tesla, a really significant point?
Yes. It's a symbolic tipping point.
Yeah.
By July 2025, BYD's new car registrations in Europe actually hit 13,500 units for the month,
Okay.
and that surpassed Tesla's 8,800 units, first time ever in Europe.
Wow. So not just stealing share from VW or Renault, but beating the American EV pioneer, too.
Exactly. It showed the breadth of their competitiveness.
So, okay, the policy framework built the scale conquered the home market, but then why did European consumers start buying them in such numbers? Brand loyalty is strong there.
It is, or it was.
It can't just be volume. It must be the product itself and the price. That's what really shook the European industry, right?
At the core of it,
Yeah.
the product and the price.
If you're finding these insights useful, by the way, take just a second to subscribe to Geo9. It really helps us keep digging into stories like this.
So yeah, the product advantage. That's what eventually won over a pretty defensive European market. The breakthroughs China made weren't just small steps. They were fundamental, especially in batteries and the whole vehicle software side.
Can you give a specific example, like the battery tech?
Sure. Take BYD's Blade battery. It got a lot of attention for safety and energy density, which is great.
Yeah.
But the strategic edge is also economic.
How so?
It uses LFP chemistry, lithium iron phosphate.
Right.
That's significantly cheaper than the nickel-based batteries many Western automakers prefer.
Cheaper materials.
Right. And its unique flat shape allows for simpler cell-to-pack integration. That boosts safety and cuts down on expensive, heavy materials needed in the battery pack structure. It directly feeds into that lower price point.
That makes sense for the cost side. But you also mentioned a tech edge beyond the battery, the smart factor.
Yes. And some critics might say, oh, smart features are just gimmicks. European engineering is still king.
But what does the actual user experience data suggest?
It suggests Chinese brands are genuinely redefining what people expect from a car, moving the focus from just mechanical performance to the whole digital experience.
Wait.
Well, you've got NIO focusing on these minimalist, very high-tech interiors, huge screens. XPeng is really pushing the envelope on advanced intelligent driving systems. Zeekr is going for performance, combined with quite aggressive, sporty designs.
And the software integration.
That's key. In areas like smart interaction, really responsive voice control, automated parking, the reports suggest Chinese brands have actually leapfrogged many traditional European luxury car makers.
Who maybe struggle with integrating that software smoothly across their older supply chains.
That seems to be a factor, yes.
Yeah.
Legacy systems can be hard to adapt quickly.
Okay, so you've got technologically advanced, software-first cars, cheaper batteries,
Yep.
massive scale economy.
And all that.
And then you hit them with the price. The appeal must be almost irresistible for a lot of buyers.
Absolutely. The pricing is the final piece of the puzzle, or maybe the sledgehammer. Chinese brands are generally landing in Europe 20% to 30% cheaper than equivalent European models.
Can you quantify that?
Sure. A mid-sized Chinese electric SUV might sell for, say, $35,000 in Europe. But similar German or French models, they often start well over $50,000.
That is a huge difference. No wonder it set off alarm bells.
Massive alarm bells across the entire continent, which led, predictably, to government action.
Right. The protective measures, the US and EU didn't wait long, did they?
No, they moved relatively quickly. It formally kicked off in October 2023, the EU launching its anti-subsidy investigation into Chinese EVs.
And things sped up from there.
Very quickly, because the import numbers just kept climbing.
Mm-hmm.
By July 2024, the EU slapped on provisional tariffs.
Pretty hefty ones.
How much extra? Extra duties ranging from 17.4% up to 37.6% for some companies. And remember, that's on top of the existing 10% import tariff.
So that 30,000 cars suddenly costs.
Roughly 8,000 more, yeah. A significant jump. And those tariffs became official, locked in for 5 years, in October 2024.
But Europe didn't just stop at the border tariffs, did they? They seemed to be trying to block the next move, too.
That's right, the counter strategy. Local manufacturing. In early 2025, the EU announced it was investigating BYD's new factory plan for Hungary,
Under what grounds?
using the foreign subsidies regulation. It shows that they're trying to keep the pressure on, even when companies shift from exporting cars to Europe to building cars in Europe.
So the big question, did the initial tariffs actually work? Did they slow things down?
Well, here's the fascinating part. Not really. Despite those sanctions, in the first 8 months after the investigation started, China exported around 430,000 NEVs to Europe.
430,000
Tick.
after the tariffs.
Yes, which was a massive 74% increase year on year.
74% increase despite tariffs.
Correct. Belgium and the UK were actually the biggest importers during that period. So no, the sanctions clearly didn't curb the growth as intended, at least not initially.
Why not? Was the price gap still too big, or?
Partly that, but also because the Chinese companies were already executing their countermove, setting up local manufacturing inside Europe to bypass the tariffs altogether.
Ah, the factory strategy.
Exactly. BYD is building its first European car plant in Hungary. That's a huge $4 billion investment aiming for production in late 2025.
Others too.
Yep. Chery partnered with Spain to revive an old Nissan plant near Barcelona. Chang'an announced plans for a European hub in Mézy, France. They're moving production inside the tariff wall.
So as Chinese capacity starts building inside Europe, the legacy automakers get hit from both sides. Cheap imports and local competition.
It's a two-pronged attack, yes.
Yeah.
And the result has been genuine industrial panic among European car makers. Production cuts, big layoffs, affecting potentially millions of families when you count the supply chain.
What are some examples of that fallout?
Well, the consequences for the big names are pretty stark. Volkswagen cut capacity at several plants, including a 25% reduction at its all-electric plant in Zwickau, Germany. That meant about 3,000 workers temporarily furloughed.
In Audi.
Audi announced the closure of its EV plant in Brussels. Another 3,000 layoffs confirmed in early 2025.
It's not just Germany, though.
Now, Stellantis, that's Peugeot, Fiat, Chrysler's parent company, suspended EV lines in Naples and Turin, Italy. And they specifically cited imported models eating away at demand.
So the competition is hitting everywhere.
Every level. And the ripple effect through the supply chain is huge. Traditional German parts giants like Bosch and Continental, heavily reliant on combustion engine components.
They announced massive job cuts, didn't they?
Exceeding 50,000 employees between them, announced in 2024 alone.
50,000. Just from 2 suppliers.
It shows the scale. And look at the overall numbers. First half of 2024, total EU car production fell 13% year on year. Meanwhile, Chinese NEV imports rose 28%.
So what does that really mean, adding it all up?
The data basically confirms it. For nearly every car European manufacturers stopped building, a Chinese brand essentially filled that production gap, either through imports or planned local production.
So this rise of Chinese NEVs, it's not just competition anymore.
No, it's a profound test. A test of an entire era for Europe's auto industry. It's forcing these established giants to fundamentally rethink everything.
Their reliance on old tech, their pricing, even where they build their cars.
Exactly. The whole strategy has to change rapidly.
And the strategic insight here seems to be that when the tech and cost advantages are just that big, systemic,
Then traditional defenses like tariffs. They might buy you a little time, but they don't solve the underlying problem.
in fact, they might just accelerate the countermove.
That's what seems to be happening. They accelerate the shift to local manufacturing by the foreign competitor. So you end up replacing domestic production with foreign-owned local production. It ultimately just reshapes the industrial landscape permanently.
Which leaves us with a really important, kind of provocative question for you, the listener, to think about. In a world where production can shift globally so quickly, can protectionist trade barriers actually save a domestic industry that's been technologically leapfrogged? Or do they just speed up the inevitable change?
A tough question with no easy answers.
So what's your take on this huge industrial shift? We'd love to hear it. Share your point of view down in the comments below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to Geo9 so you don't miss our future insights.